different thing as a therapist, and also, of course, as a client, to feel that your therapist is listening to you to see what's wrong with you and how to fix it, or the therapist is seeing the process that you are and how it's unfolding in that moment.
You know, Lynn, what you're saying, I have many, many quotes here, and I would like to invite you to listen to it with our whole bodies. In this way, we listen in this different way. And he says this: the perfected man does not interfere in the life of beings. He does not impose himself on them, but he helps all beings to their freedom. And here he's quoting Lao Tse. Through his unity, he leads them to unity. He liberates their nature and their destiny. He releases Tao in them. Oh. And I find this is so enriching, because when we allow for this space to be created, where we really listen, where we really receive the person there. First of all, this is something that we all need. we all need to be seen, to be really seen for what we are. So when this happens, there's something that opens up, as if there's a kind of spark, because the person is seen and that they can allow themselves to be. So this is the type of interaction that I think and I believe Janlin is speaking about, that it has to be, in somewhere he says that it has to be a different interaction to the interaction that happened when a stopped process happened. So when we are that different type of interaction, there's something, and those stopped processes there are allowed to move forward in so many different ways.
Yes. It's seeing that healing in the moment, rather than only looking at it over a span of time. And that as we speak about something that's traumatic or hurtful, or that we're caught up in, and the person sees us, we feel in that moment a kind of release, a kind of letting go, or the picture being bigger. I think it was Brother David that said that it's in being known that we know. It's not knowing particular things, but the kind of knowing that's one process with being known. It's we find ourselves by being found. We understand ourselves by being understood.
And the importance of that is so huge, so huge. It changes everything. And there's a quote here from Martin Buber too, where he says, "I realize myself at the contact of thou. As I become I say thou." He says, all real living is meeting. And then he goes on to say this, that I found so important. No aim, no lust, and no anticipation intervene between I and thou. And this is what Janlin says about keeping nothing between. Desire itself is transformed as it plunges out of its dream into the appearance. Every means is an obstacle. Only when every means has collapsed does the meeting come about.
Wow. I have to take that in. only when
every means has
collapsed
does the meeting come about.
Let's just be with that for a second. I wonder if you could say what that means to you, Naty, and maybe we could bring people in for a minute to see what it means to them and then come back to our other points. Sure.
I'd love that. It's like when every means has collapsed, when I don't have an agenda, when I don't want to change anything, when I don't want to do anything specifically, and I can, of course, as Jean says in The Primacy of Human Presence, I can have all my theories, and the more the better, because I might need them and I might use them. They are there, but if they get in the way, they could be limiting. So this is what I believe and what I think about this phrase. Only when every means has collapsed does the meeting come about, when I'm not expecting anything to happen, because what I can just be expecting to be that presence, and for the person there to do whatever they need to do, because it's their inner process. It's not the therapist who's going to impose anything, but it's the living forward of that person in that interaction. And when we were discussing this, Lynn, you mentioned something about gently saying, and correct me here, because it was something like, when Jen speaks about focusing on the interaction, not on myself or not on my inner being, focusing on the interaction itself, something like that.
I think it was the quote that Jean says, that we don't focus in ourselves, we focus inside the interaction.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. And what happens there.
Yeah.
In that space in between, in that interaction, and that interaction is what brings about the change and the possibility for change, because it's of course it's the process that the person does within themselves, and focusing and attending to and being with whatever, but there's something that allows for that in different ways when we are with somebody who's really present.
Yes.
As Jean says.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. And there, right there again, the person isn't focusing within themselves. They're focusing within the interaction. That you just helped me enormously, because I'm working with someone who is so depressed and so disheartened and so at the end of his rope. And some part of me feels like, I don't know, we've tried everything. and no avenue seems to help there in this time. And Jean says, do anything and then go back to listening. So the anything could be to reframe something, to bring the understanding of other people in there, all kinds of things, but nothing helps. And when you told me what that quote means to you, I thought, oh, all of the means have collapsed, and now the real meeting can happen, because I know that I can't help, right? There's something so profound about saying, no, I can't help. There's a big process that has us, that we are within this big life process, this big evolutionary process, this big carrying forward process that is in most cases stronger. It's always in some way stronger than the what crushes us, right? And that we're within that process. So I don't have to help.
Wow, and that's so liberating also. As I was sharing before, when I started out and I had this feeling that I had to help. Oh, and that was so, so not like that. And this just knowing that the best thing that I can do is to offer my real presence, but the really being presence, and that is different, because I can be present,
Mm-hmm.
and I can be really present. I can be really curious. I can be really wanting to know what how the person is living their own. Of course, I can never know, but I can try to get as close as I can to really understand, to really, and this allows for something else.